we're really happy to be able to talk about hemp history, bring hemp education to Texas. There's a lot of people in here that have made it possible. So before we really get started, we have a lot of people to thank, a long list that we couldn't get all the way to the top. But I'd really like to thank the Hemp History Week brand. They've been doing this 10 years, and without the hemp history different events that they've been putting on, I don't really think this type of event would be possible here in the great state of Texas. So this is our first Hemp History. This is our first Hemp History Week event we've done. I know we put out their annual. I don't want anybody to get that twisted. We haven't been doing this 10 years. So we're really happy. There's a lot of free samples up here that Nutiva, Dr. Bronner's, some really powerhouse mega brands sent. So feel free to come up here and take any of these things, the soap, the shampoo. Seriously, if there's somebody you think that could use this or that needs to use this, come get it and take it. We got somebody that wants one right now. Where we at that? Woo! Snags. A girl right there. So other than Hemp History Week, I'd really like to thank our title sponsor, Green Lotus Hemp. Big shout out to Green Lotus Hemp, guys. We're not going to steal their sunshine. They'll talk about what they do later, but they've been doing really incredible things here in Texas, straight up here in DFW. A lot of people don't know. I like to make the joke that if you're not looking for the hemp industry, you won't find it. So they've been operating right here in Texas for a while. And it's just it's really unique to look around. Also, our another sponsor, the Farmhouse. Shout out Richardson, Texas, out there. It's fitting that they're a sponsor here because the Farmhouse storefront, one of the Farmhouse storefronts, what is it, 4 or 5 minutes away from here, Kurt? So make sure to travel down to the Farmhouse if you haven't already seen there. They got some wonderful products. On top of that, powered by Greenlight Events. You guys see what we're trying to do. We're the reason we're 15 minutes late over here, so thank you all for bearing with us. Shout out to Green Springs Technology, hidden behind there. We're at 7 governors, Mark. We're at 7 right now? 7 governors have signed hemp legislation with the hemp pen manufactured right here out in Fort Worth, Texas. So big shout out to Mark Monday and Green Springs Technology. Go get you a hemp pen because those things are fresh. And lastly, our media sponsor, the Texas Canabis Collective. Big shout out to Austin Z and the team that they were building over there. If you don't know about the Texas Canabis Collective, you will. They're a huge media, almost conglomerate operating here in Texas. And we're really happy to have them as a media sponsor to promote, not for our brands and sponsors, but for us and share the message. Everybody in here knows Facebook and Instagram. They don't have our back. So we got to work with people that are going to share, repost, tag, whatever the social media people are saying to do. They're on the cutting edge of it. So we're really happy to have them in the building with us. And, let's go on and get this thing started. So for the 4th event in a row, we've tried explaining who Greenlight Events is and what we do, and we keep changing it. It's kind of funny. So in very short, we do keep changing it because we adapt. We're shapeshifter type folks. We're going to go and do what we need to do to service the community here. It started from just throwing meetups to trying to provide premium presentation services. So in a very short, we're an event service company. David, please tell them what we do or what we offer.
Well, to start off with, thank you everybody for showing up and supporting what we're doing. We've been working on creating quality events here for North Texas. That's part of the reason that me and Dalton got together, as we saw events that were being done here, and not to down what other people were doing, but I work in the service industry in terms of AV and doing production, and it just wasn't there. So me and Dalton teamed up. I was like, you're going to be the sales guy of all this, the front runner. I'm going to take care of all the back end. But at the same time, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help build up the community and help pull quality resources. I come from the black market. In the black market, we have to self-regulate ourselves. So coming over into the legal market now, with that experience of having to self-regulate in the black market, I find that just as important here in the legal industry, and not just in the products, but within the people that are in the industry itself. I've been through it already. I've been through the snakes in the grass, and me and this man decided to create this event so that people could have quality resources, and at the same time we're building up resources, going out to other conferences, building up our resources, opening ourselves up to do consulting for people, because we want to provide quality resources for people. There's a lot of people out here in Texas that don't put in the groundwork like me and this man are doing. One of the biggest things to stay up in the industry is getting out to other conferences. There's all these vendors in here know that already. So people are going to be coming in here in the state of Texas looking to take advantage of people that are trying to come into the business. And we're trying to do our part to make sure that that doesn't happen. So coming back from a conference too at the same time, just kind of steer right for a second. If any of you guys are interested in doing manufacturing, processing, or analytical testing, you will need to be GMP certified. You will need to have ISO 17025 certification for your facilities. Why? Because when federal legalization hits, everybody's going to have to follow the federal guidelines. And if you're not in those federal guidelines, you're not going to be able to afford to convert and do the retrofit. So you're going to end up being acquired, you're going to end up either being bought out, or you're going to end up spending a lot of money trying to update your facility to good manufacturing practice.
Well, it's better too, right? Okay, so we want to let the lawyers and everything tell us exactly what manufacturing, this is what we're going to have to do. But what we're saying is just because it's gray right now, it's not going to be gray much longer. So wake up, ask questions, find resources, because for the last 2 years, we couldn't find these resources. We're just the only reason we were trying to throw events was to find them. So we're really happy everybody's here because everybody in here knows something that we can all, we like to say the rising tides float all the boats type situation. There's enough room for everybody in all these different industries. We got to focus on quality control, patients first. You know, we can make this money with this manufacturing, but if we cut all these corners, you're literally sending pesticides and heavy metals, which we'll talk about later. Shout out to Blaze Therapeutics back there. You can't be cutting these corners when people's lives are on the line. You can't preach patient first and then try to cut corners to make 3 cents a tincture. That's not how it's going to go, and you're definitely not welcome at a green light event if you do that.
So that's what GMP certification is and ISO certification. So that's keeping the quality control. So, you know, when you're looking at people who are doing testing and stuff right now, not to call anybody out who's doing testing, but because they don't have GMP standards in place, the testing is going to show up different from different people. Now, if you go to an ISO facility that's ISO certified, more than likely the testing analytics that you're going to get back are going to be more accurate. So, anyways, moving along, staring right back into where we need to be with all of this. So we also, here at Greenlight Events, you know, besides putting on quality events, like I said earlier, I work for a production company, so we also do consulting for people on their events that they want to do. So you can hire us to come in and we can help you scale out your event, anything that needs to do on the AV side. That was our other thing too, is we wanted to provide that quality service to the industry so that anybody who wanted to do their own events had a quality resource like me, who obviously has rooted in this scene. So yeah, that's really about it. You know, we're here for events, we're here for sharing resources and contacts, and then at the same time, you know, quality control all the way down to the individual people. It doesn't just come down to the product itself. It comes down to the individuals too. So I'm very adamant about cultivating relationships. Dalton moves a lot faster than I do, but you know, some of y'all understand that. But yeah,
that's pretty good, David. So just circling back, because we like to make this clear, we do 2 different types of things. We throw our own events, which we have creative control over. Kind of this one, we'll work with the vendors we choose to. We'll work with the venues we choose to. Then we're a service provider. So if you're looking at throwing an event and you need presentation services, and this isn't the only camera we got. We got different contractors. I like to joke around with the semi trucks. There's different folks we can work with to get any equipment to any location. So if you show up to a cannabis conference or a hemp conference and you see, I couldn't hear them, there's no microphone, y'all throw them a Greenlight's card. We will get the trucks loaded, we will get the equipment up there. People don't have no business throwing a huge cannabis conference if they can't get a microphone in there, okay? And you don't need to pay tickets to go there, seriously, and it just is what it is. And we can say that because we've traveled around the state. We're trying to bring these resources back, and you can't do that if you don't go scope it out and see what's going on. So we are a service provider, but then we also throw our own event. So don't hit us up thinking, well, if we hire them, we're gonna have to give them the microphone. No, you don't. Have what you need and we'll bring it. You know, if you want some consulting and you want a partner, that's different, but we're really looking to stay in those 2 separate lanes for right now. But again, we adapt. Quality control and sustainability, that's the truth. That's really what we focus on. Hemp is amazing medicine, but it also can do really amazing things for our planet. So I really like to bring that in on this side. A lot of people want to make money in the CBD game, and that's awesome right now, and that's good for the industry because it lifts up the rest of it. But if you're not aware of the incredible things that plant fibers can do as far as sustainable living, You know, people are talking about building batteries out of it and things like that. So let's just think about it, Google it, follow hashtag hemp paper or you know, hemp plastic on Facebook and see the stuff that comes up. But other than that, please contact us. We'll be around here. We really look to provide a resource to the community, and we'll keep changing. We're adapting. The green light event's in the end of the road for us. This came out of necessity because nobody else was doing it effectively and efficiently. So we look to be around and help a lot of people out anywhere they need. Thanks, guys. So this is Hemp History Week, and we don't want to steer clear from the message, but it is, you know, the elephant in the room is medical marijuana. What happened? 3703 versus 1325. And real quick, I just want to create awareness about a nonprofit organization that is being launched, Americans for Safe Access Texas chapter. The chair is actually in the room, Nico. I don't know where you are, Nico, right here. There's a lot of things coming on for Texas patients that people aren't always putting the patients first. And there hasn't, you know, everybody does different things, everybody does different situations, but I personally am a board member of Americans for Safe Access, so, you know, while we throw an event, we're going to shout out to our team. If there are patients looking for information or what's legal, how to get into the program, how to get involved, please look at all these resources.
And she asked about cannabis, and they told her that they really couldn't give her any kind of information, even though she's in Oklahoma and it's medically legal there, because they don't know how the chemo interacts with the cannabis compounds. So obviously I've done my research already for my mother because I've battled this with her already. But
this is about as real as it gets. When he called me last night, I was like, man, you gonna be ready with the equipment? This is why we do these things.
My point
is
saying that is I have enough information that I can take these doctors and I can share it with them so they can see. And I can provide data myself because I've been a caretaker for over 2 decades now, illegally. And we're going to fight this together. And so it's important for you guys, when you're doing this, if you have anybody who's in that particular situation, write down the data, gather it, and go and present it to your doctors. Israel is leading the forefront right now in medical research. Find that information. Go out there, print that stuff up. When you go to your doctors, you give it to them. You say, here's the information that you need right here. So Americans for Safe Access is doing a really good thing. And yeah, you guys make sure do your part too as well. Thank you.
We're excited, guys. It's serious out here. You know, this is serious. This isn't a game for people. So I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you sharing that with us, David. Circling back, we are going to focus the rest on, this is hemp. I do understand the reason to separate hemp and medical cannabis. We support them both, and it is what it is. We do these things legally, in compliance. We love compliance. Anybody here that's not in compliance, please don't run up to us and tell us that. We don't play games like that. So we'll go on and get the next slide going. All right, now it's time to circle back. Hemp history. And when we talked about hosting a Hemp History Week party, we kind of brainstormed for a second, and the universe always brings these people together at the right time. A friend of a friend brought us Dr. Bradley from Tarrant County College, and this guy is wonderful. We're super happy to have him here. He's going to give us a lecture on where we started with hemp and everything. I'm not going to steal his slideshow, but we're going to start this event by talking about where we came from regarding this hemp plant, and then we'll talk about where we are today. So without further ado, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for bearing with us. I know you saw us sweating over here, so thank you. And you know, we're really looking forward to having a great networking mixer. Everybody talk to somebody and get a resource. Without further ado, Dr. Bradley.
Last year I published a book called Commodifying Cannabis. It was a study based off my dissertation. I graduated with my PhD at the University of Texas at Arlington in 2014. And I did most of the research for that degree. Afterwards, it took me a little while to revamp the manuscript and turn it into an actual book. And the book basically took me for research purposes to Harvard, to Amsterdam, to London a few times, several archives in all of those places, as well as College Park recently in Maryland, University of Maryland. And basically, through studying quite a bit of primary sources about this plant in these locations, I can kind of give you a general overview of some of the myths relating to this plant, why those myths exist, and hopefully unveil these myths so that we can kind of change some of these problems that we've been facing over the past 180 years or so when it comes to this plant. And I found that there's so much misinformation about this plant on multiple sides, right? People have a tendency to support one thing or another prior to looking at the research, is what I've found. More so than any other study that I've ever done, focusing on cannabis has been difficult because there's thousands of different research, there's thousands of different interpretations, and all these different things, and people come up with all this stuff without really going to the sources themselves. And so my hope today is to kind of maybe de-scramble some of the problems that exist around the confusion about this plant. And I usually start doing this by giving some general definitions. 3, in fact, because they are used so inaccurately by a lot of different people. And the first one is cannabis. Anyone who's been in the cannabis industry has encountered all different kinds of names for strands, and you may know cannabis indica, cannabis sativa, but when I'm talking about cannabis, I'm really talking about a diverse plant, a biological classification, a species of a plant. It's related to the hops plant. It's very inaccurate to say things like cannabis is a relative of hemp, or one thing I hear all the time is that hemp is a cousin of marijuana. I want to kind of just debunk some of these things here a little bit by just first starting with this idea of cannabis. What is cannabis? It's this plant. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest domesticated plant in human history. We have evidence at least 10,000 BCE of people manipulating the plant for some reason or another. It's a very diverse plant because the female plant and the male plant grow separately. They pollinate each other to produce genetic diverse seeds. Just like you and your brother or you and your sister come from the same parents but are different, so too every seed is a different genetic makeup of a plant, okay? Marijuana is a female flower that grows on a specific version of cannabis. It's a term that we have used historically to refer to a flower that grows, particularly sinsemilla would be like the flower that has been deprived of the male pollen, so it gets really, really large. Hemp is a different term. Hemp is a very interesting term. If you look at hemp historically, it has been used to describe all different types of uses for cannabis. Today, legally, it's in the United States considered cannabis that tests for less than 0.3% THC. But historically, hemp has been a term in the English language that has been used to describe a plant that is associated with the use of fiber, with the use of oil, with the use of its seed. It was a very common commodity. It was a common plant. Everyone grew a little bit of hemp. You hear the famous saying all the time that George Washington grew hemp. And I always like to tell people, well, that's not a big deal. Everyone grew hemp. Anyone who was a farmer since the age of exploration, when cannabis made its way to the Americas, if they had a plot of land, they used a little bit of it for cannabis because cannabis was such a ubiquitous commodity. It was very difficult to produce on a large scale. Empires had, for centuries, tried to get people to produce it so they could use it for rope, but more commonly, people just had a small half-acre or so of their land where they would cultivate it because it was an important plant. You could use it for a bunch of different reasons, a bunch of different purposes. Now, I think you need to pay attention to the historical relationship between these 3 terms. I'm going to make an argument today that if you pay attention to the relationship of these 3 terms throughout history, then you can understand in the Western world why it is we came to demonize this plant, or why it is that we came to misunderstand the plant. Okay, so as I said here in this map, where it says after 1600s, a little bit inaccurate here, I would say after the 16th century. So in the 1500s, the Spanish were the first to bring cannabis to the Americas. And the misinformation about this is so bad. I was in a compulsory drug education class at one point in my life, and the person who was certified by the state of Texas to give these people taking the class who needed the certification to do whatever the law wanted them to do, said that the Aztecs were, he told us in the class that the Aztecs were sacrificing people because they were high on dope, and they were losing their mind, killing people. Now, I tried to explain to the guy that there was no cannabis in the Americas when the Aztecs were alive, because it was the Spanish that brought cannabis here in order to grow it for fiber. That was the hopes initially, right? And that didn't work out really well, so I kept my mouth shut for the rest of the class and just got my certification and went on by. So yeah, the misinformation is really absurd. Europeans brought hemp cannabis, meaning cannabis that doesn't have THC. They brought it over to the Americas early on because it was a very important plant for them. Enslaved Africans brought a different version of cannabis, where the term marijuana comes from. Riamba is a term, a Kikongo term that is used to describe cannabis. Mariamba is the plural form. You truncate that, you get marijuana. It's a term that's sort of transformed over time to describe a plant that enslaved Africans were bringing the plant in between the sugarcane fields that they used to help them get by with a lot of grueling work that they had to do on a regular basis. These two different versions of cannabis are very important to understand, because the one that Europeans brought over here for fiber is not the same one as what the enslaved Africans brought over here, which we call cannabis indica versus cannabis sativa. Generally speaking, if you want to break what those terms mean down, cannabis sativa just means cultivated hemp. It means the hemp that Europeans use for good industrial productive purposes, for rope, for oil, and things of this nature. Cannabis indica simply means Indian hemp. Indica is the Latin term for India. Where does that term come from? This is where we start now getting into the distinctions between the plant and the transformation that it underwent over time to turn it into something that is considered an illegal commodity when it used to be an important strategic commodity. So, before the 1830s, in the United States of America, anyone who was writing books, who was involved in the medical field, anyone who was in charge of society did not really know much about anything called cannabis indica. Okay? Enslaved Africans, when they brought it over, it pollinated, and kind of, the plant will move pretty quickly. It grows on more square surface than any other plant on earth. So if you grow it, it will become feral, it'll start spreading, and indigenous populations in South America often appropriated the plant for their own medicinal purposes. But Europeans and European-derived Americans knew nothing about so-called cannabis indica, or I should say psychoactive cannabis, until about the 1830s, when they found out by an Irish doctor who was working for the British Empire in India at a medical college known as Calcutta. He published a book in 1838 about what he called gunja, G-U-N-J-A-H is how he spelled it. This is an Indian term, refers to as ganja, which refers to what I described as marijuana, the flower plant. He referred to it as gunja because he encountered it as he was working in this medical facility. He encountered it being used by indigenous people in India, because as you can see, that's sort of where the origin of the psychoactive type of cannabis comes from. And when he saw it being used this way, he of course demonized the Orientals that he saw using the plant in these very, what he called a debauchery form of consumption. And he felt the way they use it isn't good. But who is this guy? O'Shaughnessy, keep in mind, is an imperial doctor. He's working in India, controlled by the British, to try to civilize the Indians and teach them how to properly use medicine, is what he would refer to them as. So, he makes a tincture out of cannabis. He's the first Westerner to make a tincture out of cannabis. This comes across the Atlantic in the United States by the 1840s, and doctors and medical professionals from all over the United States are publishing articles about this different form of cannabis. Some of them are describing it in the same way that O'Shaughnessy described it, that it has some benefits, but if you use it the way Indians used it, it can be sinister. And before long, by the 1840s, by the 1850s, and the 1860s, not only were medical doctors, medical professionals, but poets, travelers like Bayard Taylor, writers like Fitzhugh Ludlow, people who have no scientific credentials whatsoever start writing about cannabis from what they heard O'Shaughnessy saying about it. And if you've ever heard of this term Orientalism, it's this kind of perception that Westerners have of people from the East. Whether you're Middle Eastern, Asian, Japanese, the same, you're Oriental. It's this strange, exotic land. They covet for all of the stuff that they find from the Orient. If you remember the Silk Road from your history classes, right? All these Europeans wanted things from the East, but they also had this kind of adventurous, exotic perception about things in the East. So knowing that even the term cannabis indica, which was also referred to as cannabis exotica, things like this, cannabis orientalis is what others would refer to it as. It already had woven into its meaning when it came to the United States, this exotic kind of mentality associated with it. And these writers who I've described start talking about this plant and their use with it in these very sinister ways. And I think this is important because before, what we call reefer madness, you may have heard of that from the 1920s and 1930s. A lot of people say marijuana became a bad thing in the 1930s. It wasn't until then that people started thinking of it in bad terms. And I would say, if you look at the research, all of the stuff from the 1930s and the 1920s that describe marijuana as being this sinister Asiatic intoxicant also call it Indian hemp. Also say it is a form of hemp that has been somehow contaminated by Eastern environments. If you go to College Park and go into the archive, they got a whole entire file called Indian hemp doormats. And by the 1930s, Harry Anslinger and J. Edgar Hoover were worried that people were going to be going around smoking doormats that were made out of hemp to get high, because they thought marijuana and hemp were the same thing. They thought marijuana and hemp, we couldn't make a distinction from it, right? They thought, even though marijuana is really just a flower that grows on a genetically specific form of cannabis, they thought it was all bad, it was all something that needed to be either regulated, which is what they did in 1937, and then completely abolished by 1952. So you start to see all of this talk about cannabis as being something that is sinister, something that is evil, something that needs to be taken away, right? And in this process, over the past, since about 1950, nobody could produce cannabis in the United States anymore, even though hemp is something that has been around for a very long time, since the beginning of the nation's history. And nobody used it to get high until they started encountering Eastern versions. The problem is by the 1930s and the 1940s, it was very difficult for those people in power to make a distinction because they were so obsessed with their drug rhetoric. We see it all the time, right? You hear all of these things. 7 more minutes. Okay, thank you very much. You hear all of these different things. So drugs are very easy scapegoats, right? You hear these movie or these TV commercials today that say, methamphetamine makes your teeth fall out. Even though maybe if you're taking meth all night and not brushing your teeth, that's probably what could make your teeth fall out. But we like to think that it's the drug. It's somehow we can pinpoint the drug, and then we can spend all the money to get rid of that drug. And think that we're having this solution, right? So people have these mythological perceptions about drugs that get woven into the drug itself that lead to these massive rates of incarceration that we're dealing with now. However, throughout this whole process, by the 1950s, what I found is that since people could no longer produce their own cannabis, they could no longer purchase it, it was much more difficult to smuggle it in. People started getting involved in an industry known as hydroponics. The Aztecs were growing things hydroponically, but nevertheless, it's been around for a long time. Since they couldn't import this stuff anymore, they start cultivating it at their own homes in controlled environments, clandestinely, which actually transforms the cannabis plant into a far more legitimate medicine, because prior to that, even though ancient texts had showed that cannabis had therapeutical properties, people didn't really know much about what it was doing. But now that clandestine cultivators are in their own homes and they're doing experiments in more controlled environments, they start producing more research, and it literally creates the medical marijuana movement. We have literally, even though the war, so-called war on cannabis has killed and destroyed so many people's lives, ironically, it transformed the plant into a legitimate medicine because it provided more controlled environments for people to be able to really do tests to see what it can use, what it can be beneficial for. So that's where we're at right now. The plant is transforming, as we see. It's got a wave of support that is coming around it, but we need to still be very wary because in the 1970s it looked the same as it looks now. It looked like we were about to kind of go and legalize this plant. People were going to start to wake up, so we never know when a backlash is going to happen about this plant, which is why I think it's very important to pay attention, to educate yourself, to talk to people about this plant, and to siphon through all of the problematic literature that is out there that can lead you down the wrong path. So yeah, I think that's probably everything that I have. I'll be here for the next, for the rest of this conference if anybody wants to talk to me in more detail about everything. But there you go. Thank you for your time.
Trying to be the best MC I can do. Thank you for that. Thank you for that presentation, Dr. Bradley. I'm really excited to see more hemp stuff come on the line. Hopefully, see some research done on some Texas hemp stuff, right? Well, I appreciate you guys bearing with us. This is our next presenter is a really special person, not just Greenlight Events, but to the entire community. When you're trying to build a hemp business and you're trying to look for representation of what you're doing is legal, what you're doing is just, it's important to have licensed professionals on your side. And you know, we're really excited to have Chelsea Spencer from Ritter Spencer here with us. And I can't even keep up with what's going on, so I know how hard your job is right now. But again, thank you so much for being here, Chelsea. We're happy to have you here, and welcome to Hemp History Week.
Thank you, Dalton, and thank you to David as well, and a huge thank you to Greenlight Events. I love working with these guys anytime they do an event on hemp or cannabis. If you've heard me speak before, you know that those are two subject areas that I am incredibly passionate about, and I was very excited to see that the Texas legislature finally got something done this session when they passed HB 1325. So HB 1325 is a program that's going to allow hemp cultivation, extraction, process, sale of retail, sale of non-consumable, and there are some distinctions in the bill that we're going to talk about. Whenever I give a talk, I always give a disclaimer, particularly if it's in hemp and cannabis, that however long I'm up here is not long enough for me to tell you everything you're going to know, depending on even if you're just going to be a retail store. I don't have enough time to tell you everything in this industry that will impact you, because one of the main things that I like to say about this industry is that the law will change every single day. And I'm not exaggerating about that. If you're a manufacturer and you sell in one of the 47 states where you can sell CBD, or in the 46 if you're a non-pharmaceutical company, there are 46 different states who are every single day reviewing their hemp and cannabis regulations. So we're going to first start with an overview of the USDA's role here. As all of you are probably familiar, on January 1st, 2019 of this year, the 2018 Farm Bill, which is officially known as the Agricultural Improvement Act, which amended the Agricultural Improvement Act of 1946, we'll call it the Farm Bill for today, allows for a 2018 hemp pilot program to be elected for participation by states and tribal plans. Problem, even though the legislation was effective as of January 1st, 2019, the United States Department of Agriculture has not developed plan regulations that permit states and tribal plans to submit their hemp growth plans for approval. This is going to affect Texas, which we'll talk about. The bill attempts to state that any consumable hemp product that is a food product or a cosmetic, a beverage, is not adulterated. And that's a pretty specific legal term there. And what the state is trying to do is supersede the FDA did. And that's absolutely not going to happen. So currently, the FDA maintains that you cannot add cannabidiol or tetrahydrocannabidiol to a food, a drug, a beverage, or market it as a dietary supplement. Why? Because CBD and THC are both active ingredients in prescription drugs. And under the Federal Food and Drug Cosmetics Act, it is illegal to introduce into interstate commerce any article to which a new drug has been added that is not approved as a prescription drug. The FDA actually just held hearings on this May 31st. It was a 10-hour hearing, and the FDA is primarily concerned with packaging and labeling requirements. But many of you may be asking, well, I can go down the street to the gas station and find some CBD gummies. Well, yes, you can, because the FDA hasn't taken any enforcement action to date. The extent of their exercise of discretionary authority thus far has been sending warning letters to companies. And primarily for the last 3 years, those warning letters are targeting companies who are making what are called illegal drug claims. You cannot make a claim that your hemp derivative product treats, cures, mitigates, or prevents a disease unless it is a prescription drug. So all of these CBD companies running around saying, my CBD will cure your cancer. CBD is good for anxiety. That's a very open statement, not permissible according to the FDA. Why it is becoming a reason for concern is about 90 days ago, we saw the FDA join the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, to issue a set of joint warning letters to retailers of CBD products and a manufacturer. Why is that more concerning? The FDA has to jump through a lot of hoops before they can actually have teeth for their enforcement authority. The FTC has a lot more discretionary authority for enforcement. They have larger authority to impose civil fines, larger authority to go after you civilly and criminally as well. So we can see that the FTC has an issue with some of the packaging and labeling violations that are being reported. So again, if you don't have legal counsel, I strongly urge that you have someone who's familiar with the current FDA industry and climate to review your labeling. One of the things I cannot stand is when I see a CBD product that uses the term dosage on there. That's per se under federal law. That's a medicinal term, dosage. You don't dose a non-prescription product. You have a recommended use. You have a daily usage suggestion. You have suggested use, but you don't dose. And a ton of people are putting dose on their product or putting statements that indicate that that product is intended to treat, cure, prevent, or mitigate a disease. Eventually, the FDA will send you a letter, and you're going to be given about a 30-day time frame to change your website and to change your packaging and labeling. So that should cover most of it as far as the cultivation and the retail of consumable and non-consumable. In speaking with SHS, I will say that we don't anticipate the Department of State Health Services and the Texas Department of Agriculture to actually sit down and begin writing these regulations until at least this fall.
Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Hemp History Week. My name is Vincent.
I'm Nadia. Therapeutics is a plant-focused nutraceutical company. I'm a PharmD. I come from the pharma space. I come from the rare disease specific pharma space, and so we have a specific focus on rare diseases. We also have a veteran focus.
So yes, along with serving the rare disease community, we serve the veteran community. I am a medically retired. 2017, I was medically retired from the United States Army, and when I got out, I drew my focus on advocating for other soldiers that were getting out. Some were young, 90 days in, and they were getting medically retired from basic training. They had no idea what they were doing, they had no idea about the system, so I took them under my wing, made sure that they got all their VA forms filled out, and also was able to get their first VA appointment scheduled to be sure that they understood the system.
And so we're trying to now figure out our terminologies. And historically, it's been a bit different, but now, because legislation came in, we're trying to reterm everything and try to catch up with what's going on. So at the current moment, we have hemp, which is now kind of like baby's cannabis sativa. Right before it creates all the flowers that cultivate a lot of THC. And then we have medical cannabis, which there's medical cannabis programs all over in different states that focus on bringing in or growing plants that have high concentrations of THC. And you can just see as it matures, it widens and thickens. We can move on. If anyone has any questions, you can just raise your hand and ask as well.
Okay, and so on top of that as well, hemp and medical marijuana, you have the difference between the hemp oil versus hemp extract. So hemp oil is derived from the hemp seed, which again, the doctor told you earlier, is more for industrial uses. You got different using it for different food. They cold press the seed, and that's how you get the hemp oil.
You need to get CBD from the flower.
Right.
And so and hemp extract, the terminology came from the fact that you couldn't sell CBD on Amazon. So you had, anytime you put CBD on these, marketplaces, it would flag it and bring it down. So the industry came up with hemp extract, put it out in blogs, and it became easily adapted. And so now we have hemp oil and hemp extract, and consumers are like, hemp, what's the difference between oil and extract? And essentially now oil is the old school lubricants and pretty much derived from the seed. You cannot get CBD from the seed. And now extract is a terminology used for tinctures and that has CBD in it. And so, or derived from the flower. Now, and there's different types. There's isolate, broad spectrum, full spectrum. Do you guys know the difference between the three?
Anyway,
Are you guys familiar? No? It's confusing. So isolate is obviously a CBD isolated, just CBD. Then broad spectrum, they introduce other cannabinoids. More recently, CBN and CBG has hit the market. So they've been introducing CBG and CBN and different terpenes. With terpenes are essential oils. We're all familiar with doTERRA and what's the other company that's really Young Living. Those are terpenes. Plants, terpenes are essential oils on the general market. And so we extract the terpenes that are familiar to cannabis and then reintroduce it and create broad spectrum. Then there's full spectrum, which is essentially the plant, the entire plant that you pull out. Whatever comes out of that plant is THC, there's THC in it. If it's hemp and it's legal industrial hemp, then it has less than 0.3% in it. But that doesn't mean it's legal yet because THC is technically, legally, still a controlled substance. But CBD has been declassified with the USDA, declassified in terms of GW Pharmaceuticals product. But the USDA recently submitted that letter that I'm sure we are all familiar with that has informed law enforcement that they are to intervene when it comes to transporting hemp through different states, which is then being interpreted as, well, CBD from hemp should be safe.
And also it's also important to remember on the side of the oil, if you're going to decide to take the oil, use your CBD as you regimen yourself. But if you're going to use the oil, it's important to use that whenever you sleep. I say at night, but a lot of people work during the night and sleep during the day. So whenever your body is at rest, the omega-3s and 6, that's whenever it's going to be metabolized by your body and useful. So when you're using it during the day.
We don't just do CBD. We are plant-based. So a lot of people don't know that when you are seeking omegas to improve your brain function and things like that, our bodies can't metabolize the omega fatty acids while we're awake. We need to be asleep in our REM state in order to actually metabolize it. So if you're taking supplements, and the hemp oil is really a good supplement for omegas, but if you take it, you want to take it before you go to sleep, so when you enter the REM stages, you can actually metabolize it. And the same thing like vitamin D. We're plant-based, so we're trying to educate consumers about different supplements that are out there. Vitamin D, we make it naturally in our skin. So you go outside, you start, creating your own vitamin D. A lot of us are deficient because, we're stuck inside. We don't, we're all about making money, and that doesn't really involve a lot of outdoor activities nowadays. So a lot of us are deficient in vitamin D. So we try to we go to CVS or Walgreens or Rite Aid, pull off the shelf vitamin D, but a lot of that vitamin D isn't even bioavailable. And so you're just consuming money, or even pesticides or preservatives, flavors, and colorings. So we're trying to now educate the consumers and also help the manufacturers become more responsible. So that's what we coined the term responsible distribution, and we're trying to apply it to the cannabis industry as well, because these processes have already been established. It's just a matter of now applying it to this young industry and and making sure that toxic chemicals aren't making it to the market. The way we function, this is something, unfortunately, even in pharmacy school or medical school, we're still not taught. And so a basic way to break it down, there's two receptors, there's CD1, CD2, it's spread throughout our body, it interacts, the CD1 receptors are mainly concentrated in the cerebral area, and the CD2 receptors, they're mainly in the peripheral area. But what you really want to understand is that the endocannabinoid system is our body's thermostat. So everyone has, understands like a smart house, right? You set your temperature to a certain degree. You want your house to be at 65. You're comfortable at 65 degrees. The sun comes out, it gets hot outside, the AC comes on. If it starts getting cold at night, the heat comes on. That's what the endocannabinoid system does for us. We encounter some bacteria, some viruses, someone sneezes and you get that bacteria on you. Your endocannabinoid system is supposed to ramp up some metabolic processes, downregulate metabolic processes, and help you fight whatever's going on. And a lot of us, with the stresses of our environment, with all the carcinogens that are out there, we're deficient. Like we are deficient in vitamin D. And so now we're looking to phytocannabinoids, the ones that are made from the plant. We make our own endogenous cannabis, sorry, I forgot that. We make our own endogenous cannabinoids. We make them ourselves. But we become deficient because of the stresses of our environment and potentially even genetic predispositions. And so we go through it in our older adult years, or for like some people like me, I have 3 genetic rare conditions. So I'm in my younger years, but I'm turning to CBD to supplement my endocannabinoid system. And we turn to phytocannabinoids. Phyto means from the plant, to supplement. But the thing is, cannabis is still a young industry, just like the dietary supplement industry. And it's not regulated. We're finding a lot of manufacturers are having trouble producing products that are safe for consumption and free of toxins. And so we're doing our best. We can talk about responsible distribution after this.
And so I'm going to go ahead and let her continue on because she did look up all the studies and went through all the potential benefits. So again, if you want to flip through page 13 and 14 while she speaks about this, so don't lose this.
Yeah, there's page 13, 14, and 15. I won't go through all the studies. You guys can read it. CBD is not a cure-all. It's pretty much an adjunct therapy. It can, for certain conditions. You can also utilize it to help improve quality of life depending on your condition. But you also have to be very careful. This is a list of studies, and you can read more about the studies that back these potential benefits, because for sure the FDA is listening right now. You don't say there are any cures, but there are potential benefits based on these clinical studies that are very readily available on, for download. If you guys need help digesting it, we try to summarize it as much as possible in this book in layman terms. But you want to also make sure CBD is while CBD doesn't have toxicity issues because our body readily excretes it. It's metabolized by the cytochrome P450 enzyme. Are you guys familiar with that enzyme? Cytochrome P450 enzyme. That's an enzyme that we house in our liver. And so if you look on page 16, cytochrome P450 enzyme, a lot of drugs utilize it to become metabolized, to go through our system. And so opioids are metabolized by this enzyme. Warfarin, like blood thinners, essentially, are metabolized by this enzyme. And so cancer, chemotherapy drugs are metabolized by this enzyme. So when you take CBD, CBD is a competitive molecule. So it wants the receptor, and it's going to bind to that receptor before the drugs that you are taking on a regular basis. So that drug is going to increase in your bloodstream. You're going to have way more. If you take CBD on a regular basis for your and you find your dose because it's based on your body weight, then you start taking it on a regular basis, you have to understand that certain drugs that are metabolized by 75450 enzyme are going to increase in your bloodstream. And so you need to know this if you're on opioids or any sort of toxic chemicals, because now you have a higher concentration of this medication in your bloodstream if you maintain that dose. If you're working with your general practitioner who understands and even calls a pharmacist to learn about the mechanism of action behind CBD, they can actually titrate that medication down, and so now you don't have to take as much. And it stays in your bloodstream as long as possible. So that's what a lot of cancer patients are looking to CBD to not have to take as much chemo, and so they use CBD. It helps with their anti-inflammatory situations and nausea and things like that. But it also lowers the amount of medication they need to get that dose, that therapeutic effect that they're looking for. But again, we still need more data. That's currently what we understand about CBD at the current moment based on all the data that's available.
And so if you go ahead and flip a couple more pages, 17 and 18, there's off the Epidiolex study, this is where the dosage guide refer to as if anytime you're taking the 500, 750, 1,000, 2,000 milligram, you can look in the book and based on your weight, based on your severity, and based off the studies, this is kind of the chart.
Their guidelines.
The guidelines for taking.
But we encourage you to talk with your general practitioners or whatever, your healthcare professionals to look at this and understand what other medications you're on and what your weight is, because we're all about precision medicine at this point, personalized medicine. The average doesn't apply to everyone. And so averaging it out isn't something that we're looking to do anymore. We're trying to customize at this point. So you look at your specific situation and you figure out what works best for you based on the severity of your condition. And so we offer these guidelines as a starting point to figure out the best regimen for you. And we're open to talk with healthcare professionals to help you guys figure out, or other patients figure out what might best suit their medical regimen. And you have to understand, CBD reacts with sunlight. So as soon as it hits the sunlight, it's degrading. And so the bottle is very important that UV rays are not penetrating it. Now, there's so much chemistry that comes behind CBD that the manufacturers need to understand when it comes to creating their products. And so scientists are coming to the market like myself and trying to help make sure that these products are made bioavailable and also that they're free of toxins. A lot of them also have pesticides in them. That's something that a lot of people in the rare disease and veteran communities, they're immunocompromised and they react to it. They're just like, I don't know, that thing made me sick, it hurt my stomach, or I don't know, I couldn't sleep at night, and CBD doesn't work for me. And they then attribute it to the rest of the industry, and we lost out on a product that could potentially have helped them. And so manufacturers need to understand that. And so when we identify a batch and lot that doesn't pass, we don't put it on blast. There's no one to report it to, honestly. There's no one to report it to. There's no way to recall it. When a lettuce tests positive for E. coli, you cannot, it gets recalled. We cannot recall CBD. So now we're trying to educate consumers on what do you guys need to look for. You always want to look for batch and lot numbers on the product. You want to ask for certificates of analysis, COAs, make sure those certificates of analysis have batch and lot numbers on them. And you can always talk to us, call us up, and we can help you better identify how to make sure that you are consuming products that are manufactured responsibly.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate what you said about the batch and lot numbers. Just because the certificate of analysis has the batch and lot number, just because it has the batch and lot number does not mean that bottle is the one that the manufacturers manufactured for you to buy. Because if the bottle doesn't have a batch or lot number on it, how can you ever tell?
The bottle has to be labeled.
How can you ever tell that certificate of analysis goes with that bottle? So that's the key point, and I think Dalton's kicking us off.
This sounds bad, but I started smoking cannabis when I was like 13 years old. When I went to the military, I already had a love for the cannabis plant. When I got out of the military, I was kind of like, wow, weed's legal in California. It was mind blowing. So I wanted to learn everything that I could about the cannabis plant. I started growing cannabis in my closet. That turned into me growing cannabis into my bedroom. Next thing you know, I was growing in my garage, and then my whole house had plants in it. And then, I made a career out of cultivating cannabis. So from 2003 until 2015, me and my brother owned and operated cannabis collectives in Southern California. So I grew up in this industry as a cultivator with my hands in the dirt, with a very deep, intimate relationship with the cannabis plant, an understanding of the cannabis plant, and a respect for the cannabis plant, which I think is something that is lost nowadays in this industry. So when in 2015, Texas passed Senate Bill 339, right? And being from Texas, I was like, wow, I can finally go grow cannabis legally in Texas. So I packed up all my stuff, and me and my brother moved back to Texas. We founded an investment group in 2015, went out and raised a whole bunch of money, which I had never done in my life, and applied for one of these Senate Bill 339 licenses. Well, we came in 15 out of 48 applicants. We spent a lot of money applying in the process, and we didn't get a license. So I think in reality we dodged a bullet because the companies that are operating in the space now, if you look at some of the companies, they're so heavily invested in their infrastructure, and these guys are literally bleeding money right now. So I think we kind of dodged the bullet there. So the Senate Bill 339 thing didn't work out, and I decided that, I'm going to create a cannabis hemp brand. So Green Lotus was born. So if you want to go ahead and go. So what is Green Lotus, right? So Green Lotus is we call ourselves we for the past 3 years, obviously we couldn't really operate transparently here in the state of Texas. So we've had operations in Colorado where we were cultivating our hemp. We were also doing our extraction in Colorado. But we branded the company, and this is going to change in the near future, as a Colorado-based, better-known hemp oil products brand that manufactures and distributes their own products. So I want to touch on one thing, right? Hemp oil. Some of you are probably confused. What is hemp extract? What is hemp oil? Do your products have CBD? What is your product made? Right? We choose to call our ingredient hemp oil. There's a very specific reason for that. It is oil that comes from the hemp plant, from the cannabis plant, and is full of naturally occurring cannabinoids. You're never going to hear me say our products are CBD products. You're never going to hear our salespeople say, these are CBD products. They're cannabinoid products. And why do we say they're cannabinoid products? Because our products come from genetics that are cultivated to have full spectrum of cannabinoids. So if you check our C of A's, we're going to register for CBC, CBG, CBDA, CBDV, and we're hitting about 8 or 9 cannabinoids on HPLC testing. So that's why we call ourselves a cannabinoid product brand. We're also here in the near future going to begin R&D on products with other cannabinoids that are being, right now there's genetics that are being cultivated that are high in CBG and high in CBC. And as we continue to breed and grow hemp cultivars that have been dormant for hundreds of years, we're going to start seeing new cannabinoids. So right now, CBD is a cannabinoid that everybody knows, but in the near future, we're going to be talking about, PGB. I don't know, right? It's going to be a new cannabinoid that we discovered that has these other medical properties. So me and my brother founded the company in 2016. And we're powered by a young, diverse team of advocates dedicated to cannabis education and promoting a world where the healing of power hemp oil is accessible to all people. So I think there's one core thing that runs consistent throughout our whole company, and it's that people that work in our company are actually passionate about cannabis, and they're passionate about the education of cannabis. So we're not here to sell you products. We're here to educate you, right? We're here to educate you down the path of, what is all the misinformation that's out there? What is cannabis? What is hemp? What is marijuana? What are cannabinoids? What are terpenoids? What are receptors? What does all this do? And what does it mean to me? So that's a theme that we have consistent across the company. And I think if you talk to any one of our people, you'll see that. Next slide. So what is our mission? Our mission is to improve the well-being of individuals and communities by providing access to natural organic hemp oil products that drive awareness and the benefits of hemp oil by drafting informative and educational content for the people who need it most. So once again, we really are freedom fighters. We really are here to free the plant. We're here to increase accessibility to the plant. And that's our core mission, right? And to do it in a safe, responsible way. Next slide. So let's talk about the endocannabinoid system. I think everybody that's here has heard about what is the endocannabinoid system. I could stand up here like I'm a doctor and act like I know exactly what the endocannabinoid system does, but I'm not going to do that. What I can tell you is that we do know that the bodies do have an endocannabinoid system. Hemp products, cannabis products have cannabinoids in them, and they have interactions with the endocannabinoid system. How exactly that happens, I think there's a lot of studies that are going on, and I think that in the next 10 years, I think we'll have real clinical information that tells us exactly how these things are happening, right? For me, I started using cannabis at a young age. It helped me with stress, it helped me with anxiety. I used my products in a later age in my now 38 years old, for pain, for certain things that I had, and it's worked for me. So I'm a believer. I believe in it because I've used the products, but I'm not a doctor, so I can't exactly tell you how they work. Right? Now, I can tell you that we do all have an ECS system. We do all have receptors, CB receptors located all throughout the vital organs in our body, and the cannabinoids work with those receptors to do a number of things. I think the general consensus in the medical community is that cannabinoids promote homeostasis within the body, right? And how that actually happens is probably a little bit more over my head. But so that is what studies are showing. So our products are full spectrum. We have about 8 or 9 cannabinoids registered in our HPLC lab reports, and we also have terpenoids in our products. So it's full spectrum. When you get cannabinoids and terpenoids, they work together, create the entourage effect, and have this therapeutic effect on your body, which we call regulation and homeostasis of the cells. Right? Next slide. So why Green Lotus? Why would you guys want to buy our products? And you know what? I'm really not here to sell anybody products. We didn't bring product to sell. I'm really just here to talk and educate you. Why Green Lotus? This is how we have branded our company. These are the things that are important to us, and I'll share with you why. And I think if you don't buy our products, you need to make sure that you're consuming products that are made in a responsible manner according to how we make our products, which is GMP processes, right? So next slide. So, what is why Green Lotus? Well, first of all, we own our own supply chain. We control our own fate. We control the cultivation of our genetics with our contract farmers. We control the extraction processes with our extraction partners, and we control the manufacturing of all of our products. So right now we have probably about 60, 70 SKUs that we produce, and we control that whole process. That doesn't mean that we do all the heavy lifting. That doesn't mean that Green Lotus employees are in the field planting plants and extracting oil. That means that we control the process with our intellectual property. We tell our partners how we want our plants cultivated, what kind of genetics we want cultivated. We tell our extraction partners how we want our oil made. We control that process through quality agreements. So we own our own supply chain. So we are truly a farm-to-bottle brand. We control every point of the supply chain: cultivation, extraction, manufacturing, and distribution. And we strategically employ and partner with established experts who consistently produce superior products. So we could attempt to make our cosmetic products in our lab and put them together, and but no, we don't. We create the formula. We go find the best GMP, OTC licensed registered lab that exists in this immediate area, and we contract them to make our products. So we have real chemists with real GMP processes and real licensed facilities, FDA registered and OTC, over-the-counter drug licensed facilities making our products. So when you get our product, you know that it's a safe product to consume or to put on your skin. Next slide. So what are our strategies? Our strategies are, we have a couple of different strategies from marketing and manufacturing, but I'll touch on them all of them a little bit here. Next slide. So let's talk about our marketing strategies. What are we doing to build our brand? I think the number one thing that we're focused on is educational content. We want to make sure that we're creating educational content for our consumers. I think it's so hard. There's so much murkiness in this space, and this person said this, and this company said this, and I think the most important thing is to craft educational content that is well-researched and factual for our consumers, right? We want you guys to be educated and understand the products that you're taking. Obviously, we're active on social media, digital media. We don't really focus too much on paid advertising, public relations, email marketing, but we really do focus on in-store marketing and storytelling. We want to help our retail partners that are in-store educate consumers once again. CBD products seem to be sold in a lot of different stores nowadays. You can go to a gas station and probably buy some sort of CBD gummy, but what kind of educational experience are you going to get from the guy working at the gas station, right? So we want to work with our retail partners to help them, to train them on our educational content and the experience that we provide our consumer, which is one that is based on education. And obviously storytelling. You know, we want to get our story out there to the market. We feel like we have an interesting story. I think you're going to notice that a lot of brands out there, a lot of people, they're kind of hiding behind. You know, let me give you an example. CV Sciences. Does anybody know the story behind CV Sciences? Plus CBD oil. They sell $40 million a year worth of product. Does anybody know their story? No, they don't. Right? A bunch of executives, a bunch of suits, started a company, started selling CBD products. Okay? Our story is a little bit different. You're dealing with an individual that's been in the cannabis industry his whole adult life. We understand the cannabis plant supply chains. We're passionate about it, and we want to make sure we get that story out to the consumer because there is love and there is attention and there's dedication and there's attention to detail behind what we do. We're not in this just to turn a quick buck. You know, we're in this for the long run, and we're in here to make cannabis more accessible to everybody across the world. Next slide. So what are our manufacturing strategies? So we talked a little bit about our production of our biomass. So we contract that out with our growers. We give them our genetics. We give them our cultivation processes, make sure they're grown organically with no pesticides and no fertilizers that they shouldn't be grown with. We contract with the largest domestic labs to produce our biomass into oil. So we actually work with one of the largest extraction lab in the country that is CGMP certified. And we have co-manufacturing contracts in place with some of the largest GMP FDA registered co-packers in the country, right? So you'll notice that a lot of people that have CBD brands are making products. Some people are making them in their house, in their kitchen, in their garage, you know what I mean? And it's like, you really don't know what's safe to consume. All of our products are made in FDA registered CGMP facilities. Next slide. Sales strategy. So we have an advocate mentality, right? We want to educate the consumer before we sell them products. If you buy product from me, great. If you don't, at least you can take something away from the experience that'll educate you in this market and help you go make an intelligent decision about the products that you are going to consume. So that is our strategy for selling products. Education, education, education. And we've actually just launched our brand into Mexico. So we're currently in 1,500 locations across the United States. We have 70 employees located in 4 states now, and we have 4,000 points of sale that we have just entered into the Mexican market. So, you know, the strategy for the company is to continue to increase our domestic footprint and our international footprint. So you can actually skip this slide. We just talked enough about that. Next slide. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about our product offering. All right. Next slide. So first of all, we just launched. You can leave it there. We just launched all of our new packaging. So we're really happy with this. We, you know, when we founded the company 3 years ago, we were cannabis guys selling products. Now we've kind of morphed into a more sophisticated consumer packaged good brand company and placing an emphasis on the packaging of our products. So we just recently launched all of our new packaging. Our eco-friendly hemp paper boxing is one of the features of our product. So all of our hemp packaging is actually made from industrial hemp. It's biodegradable. And the next step is to eventually have the plastic materials that are in our products made from biodegradable plastic. So we want to be the first hemp consumer packaged good brand that has everything in the product that is actually made from hemp and biodegradable. And QR codes. So I think it was Blaze Therapeuticals was talking about how important testing is, and we couldn't agree more. I'll take you guys a little bit through our testing process so you can understand just how detailed oriented we are. Whenever we get our biomass that is harvested from our farm, we take that biomass and we test it for pesticides and heavy metals. Once that biomass is then turned into oil, we test the oil for residual solvents, microbials, and potency. And then once that oil is turned into finished product, we test that for microbials and for potency. So whenever you scan one of our QR codes and you enter in the lot code number that the page lands you on, you will find all of this information on the lab report, right? So you make sure that you're consuming a product that is safe, that is free of arsenic, free of heavy metals, free of pesticides, free of residual solvents, and anything else that could potentially harm your body. Next slide. So Green Lotus certifications, all of our product is organically grown. So all of our hemp is grown 100% organically. It's actually all certified by One Cert. One Cert is an independent organic certification company that works with farmers across the United States. And we can actually provide documentation for those certifications. All of our hemp is grown in Colorado. Colorado really is the mecca for hemp. That is where the hemp movement started. That is where the genetics of what is known today as modern day hemp were pioneered. So all of our hemp right now, our farmers are all contracted out in Colorado. We will be moving all of our farming operations to Texas come January of 2020. So that's something that we're extremely excited about. All of our products are made in CGMP facilities. So all of our co-packing partners, co-manufacturing partners, as well as our 10,000 square foot lab in Carrollton, Texas, operates under CGMP, which is Good Manufacturing Practices. And all of our product is lab tested. So once again, you can scan that QR code, take you directly to the laboratory. Next. So I'm just going to blow through this, guys, because the next is kind of product stuff. And I know that everybody kind of antsy and wants to get on networking, so I'll just kind of blow through some of the product stuff. So we have 3 topicals on our line. We have the freeze, the heat, and the sap. The freeze and the heat are essentially a biofreeze / icy hot on steroids, formulated by my business partner, who's our chief science officer, who's been in pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, and cosmetic formulation for 20 years. So we formulated these products with a delivery system. So whenever you have CBD products that you're putting on your skin, most people think that you put a lotion on your skin, that lotion makes it through your skin, but that's not the case. So if that product does not have a delivery system, very much to how a drug, if you take a drug that does not have a delivery system, then you're going to get maybe 30 to 40% of that actual drug that's metabolized by your body. Well, all of our topicals are formulated with a delivery system that takes the extract, the oil, and through a transdermal delivery system, helps it penetrate the skin, right? So that's going to just create a more effective product. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about that, topicals. Next slide. So we also have tinctures. Our tinctures come in 3 flavors, orange, lemon, and natural. All of them go from 125 to 1,500 milligrams of naturally occurring cannabinoids. You're going to hear me say that a lot, naturally occurring cannabinoids. None of our products are labeled as having CBD in them. All of our products have a plethora of cannabinoids, so the dosing that you see on the products is going to represent the actual milligram of naturally occurring cannabinoids combined. Next slide. We also have our soft gels. They come in 750 and 1,500 milligrams. Personally, soft gels I think is the best product for me. 25 milligrams per soft gel, easy to dose, don't have to worry about taking a tincture. Take one in the morning, take one at night, and you just kind of forget about it. Next slide. Thanks. Then we have our cartridge line. We're actually really proud of this line. What we did with this line is we created a line that would be hard to reverse engineer. All of our cartridge flavors come in blended fruit flavors. So you'll notice that all of our cartridges are, for instance, banana mango, watermelon grape, passion fruit blueberry, strawberry kiwi. We wanted to create something that actually had a real formulation that had intellectual property behind it, so it couldn't easily be knocked off and reverse engineered. So our cartridges are probably our most popular SKU, and we have 8 flavors that are going to be rolling out over the next 12 months. Next slide. And last but not least, so we recently released, actually the 27th of this month, we're officially shipping this product. So we have a new premium sparkling hemp water that recently came out. And it's we basically took a LaCroix meets a bubbly and created a version with hemp extract in it. So we have a grapefruit and a watermelon flavor. We're really excited about this product. We sold all the first batch on pre-sale before we even had it. So we're really excited to get this product out to market. Once again, same features, has a QR code on it, which is really important. If you guys are consuming waters with cannabinoids in them, make sure you see a lab report for that product, because most of them don't have a tenth of what they say on them. And it's so hard to emulsify cannabinoids oil into water that most people just aren't doing it effectively.
Basically being one of the first states to lead by example.
I appreciate that.
That's something for me, like I said, I've been traveling around to all these different conferences, figuring out, what are the good practices that everybody has. And I just came back from California from the concentration camp, and we're talking about a legal state, and they were all talking about, we don't even have regulations within legal states.
Right.
So, the fact that they were coming up with solutions talking about CGMP certification, ISO
Right.
certifications.
Right.
You're already on that bit
Absolutely.
of the curve, and that's what I was trying to tell everybody earlier. If you're trying to come into a business, or if you're trying to get into product manufacturing, processing, or even analytical testing, these CGMP standards, GMP standards, ISO certifications, that's what the industry is going to. And his company, Green Lotus, and these guys, they're already privy to that, and they're already basically setting themselves up for when federal legalization happens. They don't have to deal with any of the problems that a lot of other companies are going to have to deal with.
So we were actually fortunate enough to work with Senator Perry's office to draft 1325. So we helped draft it. So we weren't just out rallying and supporting for it. We financially committed resources to passing that legislation, which is going to pass.
You guys give it up right now for Mark David and Green Twins Technology.
Yeah, thank you, David, and thank you, Dalton, and everyone else that helped put this event together today. Great turnout, great turnout. So happy to see everyone here. A lot of people that you already know. Even happier to see new people here today, because that's what Hemp History Week is about. It's about going out and educating people the benefits of the most industrious agricultural crop in history. There's an estimated 25,000 uses from the plant Canabis sativa L. And we have so many examples of that today, from things you can eat, to paper, to shirts, to plastic, to you name it. So I love Hemp History Week. It was my first hemp event ever. It was 5 years ago. I wish she could be here today, but Diana Oliver was the host of the first Hemp History Week event, and it was at the Sundown at the Granada. I'm not sure exactly what it was called, but the roof at the Granada, next door to the Granada Theater, that's where the Hemp History event was. Put on by Diana Oliver, who's put together a number of films. She's followed Bruce Deason and the Canabis car around for a few years, filming him, got them on Jay Leno. So many amazing things out of Hemp History Week. Dr. Bronner's, Nativa, two of the big companies that are sponsoring Hemp History Week are just fantastic companies. And anybody that has a business or wants to start a business or just wants to be better, follow Dr. Bronner's, follow Nativa, because they're great companies. They treat people well. They make a lot of money, and they take that money and they put it back into the community. They put it back into educating people and making the world a better place. That's what they are fantastic examples of how to operate within the space. How to operate within any space. They could be selling hot dogs, and they would be the best hot dog people out there. So about me. So I was in the Air Force. I got medically retired for ulcerative colitis, which is like Crohn's disease. Very painful condition. I don't want to go into the details. I don't need to go into the details. It's horrible. One of the bad things about it is that you're really sick, but you still got to go on with your daily life, and people treat you like you're a malingerer and you're just complaining, and meanwhile you're peeing blood out of your butthole 10 times a day in the bathroom. So once after the Air Force, I had a contractor job for a couple years. I had a top secret clearance. I was an Intel analyst. I was one of the supervisors. After that job ended, I said no more. I started using cannabis for the pain, and it made it go away almost immediately. Actually, the last prescription medication I ever took for ulcerative colitis was morphine, and it was in the emergency room. And that's been 6 years now. So 6 years with no. So 6 years with no medication. Let me put it this way: no prescription medication for a very painful condition. And what really bothers me about ulcerative colitis and lupus and a lot of autoimmune diseases, it's pretty common belief these autoimmune diseases are caused by the poisons that are now introduced into our food chain. We're poisoning ourselves, and it's wreaking havoc on our bodies. So the number one thing that this taught me was nature is plan A. Nature is always plan A in anything I do now. I try to keep all the chemicals out of my food. I try to wear as much natural clothes as possible. Half of my wardrobe is hemp. Most of my shirts are hemp. So cannabis helped heal my colitis, and in doing some research, I always knew about paper and rope and clothes. I always thought they were just hippie clothes, but I never knew all this other stuff that you could do from cannabis. When I found out you could build a house out of cannabis, out of the leftover junk from the inside of the plant, you can take the outside and make t-shirts and robes and blankets. And you can take this inside the plant and you can build a house. There was a guy that redid his Mazda Miata hemp fiberglass. It's like fiberglass, but just with natural plant fibers. He drives the car around the country, showing people what you could do with the cannabis plant. Once I found out everything you could do with cannabis, that was all I ever wanted to do with the rest of my life. My family thought I went crazy because I went from being an Intel analyst to be, cannabis, hemp. It shouldn't be illegal. It's the best thing that ever happened to the planet, but it's kept illegal by the powers that be for a large number of ridiculous reasons. And it should have never been illegal in the first place, and now we gotta go jump through all these hoops and play all these games just to convince people that it should have never been illegal in the first place. And a plant that can be grown to make t-shirts and paper and tinctures that you rub on your skin should not be illegal. So the first thing, when I started Green Spring Technologies, it was all around the same time as the Hemp History Week event. So during that, within a 2-week period, I read a book called Hemp Bound, and if anyone was at EarthX, the author, Doug Fine, was one of our speakers at EarthX. I read Earthbound, Hemp Bound, saw 2 different documentaries on hemp, Bringing It Home, and Hempsters Planting the Seed, and I also went to a normal conference, all in the same 2-week period. And that was when I came up with the idea of the hemp pen. And there was a guy that was speaking, and he talked a lot about lobbying and legislation, all this stuff. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, what do you think if we made a pen out of hemp plastic and we got these politicians, we encourage these politicians to use this hemp pen and change these ridiculous laws? And he said, I think that sounds like a great idea. It sounds pretty crazy. I don't know who would buy it, but yeah, go for it. So I came up with this idea when I was high at a normal conference. Let's go. And then so far, 7 governors and 1 senator, Mitch McConnell, have used our hemp pens to sign official hemp legislation. And this is one of my favorite pictures because, you can't tell from here, but right here is Donald Trump signing the Farm Bill. There's Mitch McConnell in the front row saying, hey, Mr. President, use my hemp pen. So a pen, an idea I came up with when I was high, got within 4 feet of the President of the United States of America. So we got a bunch of stuff over here. Come by and check it out.
These right here.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff. We do a lot of custom stuff. We engrave pens. We make name badges. We can do all sorts of stuff for you.
If anybody wants to come touch this, you can take it off of me. I'm my person. I love it. It's Mark's a great guy and has great products. If you have a company or you are looking to do anything with hemp, get some hemp plastic swag. There's no reason not to. It's affordable. It's fun. It's an educational thing. I love going to the Capitol being like, oh, you're not going to vote for hemp, but what's good? I left the plastic hemp Texas flag on Representative Candy Noble's desk. And next time I came back, she was like, oh yeah, you're the hemp person. So it's just one of those things. You can just leave it, destigmatize. But anything else you got, Mark? Go check out the stuff.
We got a bunch of 3D printed swag, so stop by. We got a bunch of Texas flags and guitar picks.
And I love these events because I want to network. So if y'all can just bear with us, there's plenty of people that deserve stage time and deserve to share their message out loud with the community. The next few we got, I'm super excited about this next one. I can't hide it. This guy's a really good friend of mine, a mentor politically, somebody that I really want to go to war with. People people talk about veterans, PTSD, going to war, needing cannabis. I'm not a veteran, I'm not in the Army, but I feel like I'm going to war with a lot of these people. And the next guy, the next brand that we're going to enter now, and the guy that we're going to announce, has put blood, sweat, and tears into legalizing the cannabis industry for everybody, for all walks of life. So he's going to tell you more about what they do, but if you're not familiar with this brand, you're definitely about to be. They're a force to be reckoned with, and without further ado, please welcome my man, Austin Z, the Texas Cannabis Collective.
What's up, Texas? It's time to get excited, man. We got some laws passed this past session, right? Of course, people have already touched on it. HB 1325 is the hemp bill that passed. I know Chelsea Spencer already touched on a lot of the rules and regulations that are going to be coming down through the Ag Commission. We also had HB 3703 passed, which is a very limited expansion bill to the current Texas Compassionate Use Program, which was created back in 2015 under Senate Bill 339. So don't get me wrong, it's not everything that we wanted, but unfortunately the way that the state of Texas executes through its government, these little small steps are eventually going to lead to much bigger things, especially as things change at the federal level. So enough about those things. Let's talk about what I'm here to talk about, which is the Texas Cannabis Collective, right? So back in, you want to hit the next slide? Back in 2016, when I started jumping into the reform movement, I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of, there weren't a lot of ways for people to consolidate all of their news about what was happening in the state of Texas regarding cannabis, right? And so I also learned that there was another trend. Most people, especially within our age demographic between the ages of 25 and 45, they're not getting their news by watching CNN or going to CNN or Fox News or any of these other prime outlets or even local newspapers like the Dallas Morning News or the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. This is how we read our news these days. Am I correct? Most of you, when you get on your social media app, you got those news sites that you have plugged in, so when you're scrolling through, that's how you get your news. And this is what I discovered back in 2016. So I went to the largest social media player that was out there, Facebook, and I created the Texas Cannabis Collective. And what my sole mission was to provide objective and accurate Texas cannabis news from across the state. Now this wasn't just my own material. I took things that the Austin Statesman was reporting. I took things that were happening at the border, the RGV. I looked at things that were happening at the Panhandle. All right, El Paso, Texarkana, Houston, DFW, San Antonio. Texas is a big state. It's really like 7 states in one, right? We all have different cultures. We all have a different way we engage socially, right? We all even have a different method and means by which we use and apply cannabis. So that's what I developed a team by getting involved in a lot of activism. I showed up to a lot of events just like these by networking, meeting people, and developing relationships. And no pun intended, or actually pun fully intended, cultivating those relationships, right? So I developed a team who was focusing on policy, industry, and culture, right? So we are comprised of veterans, activists, patients, business owners, all across the state, right? There's not a tiny city within the state of Texas that I'm not keeping my eye on to find out what's happening, whether it's at the district attorney's office in changes to their policy, or whether it's at a macro level throughout the entire state, as in the legislative session. For those who don't know me, I'm a lead activist in the state of Texas. This is my second session in a row to spend a large amount of time at the Capitol to influence legislators, to help and assist other activists who are trying to talk to their legislators, and to find out the most up-to-date current information and news that was happening in the state and deliver that to the people. In fact, we have live videos in the chambers, the Senate chamber and the House chamber, and in committee rooms of a lot of this important legislation that just went down. We have it live on our page, right? Go to the next slide. So, who do we reach, right? As you can see, we reach millions of people. All right, we have on our Facebook page, we have 25,000 followers, all right? And so if you look just in the month of May, we reached 1.6 million unique accounts. All right, our entire audience, the majority of our audience is in the state of Texas alone. I don't care what's happening in Louisiana. I'm not concerned with what's happening in New Mexico. I care about specifically what's happening. I care about you people, all right? I care about your education. And so my goal was to make sure that I was reaching as many people as possible to keep them as educated as I was. Because let me tell you, if you are as educated as I am, as guys like Dalton or David or some of these other speakers are, if you are as educated about cannabis and what is happening in the state of Texas as we are, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And it's time that all of us are a force to be reckoned with, because that way, that's going to make things change faster in the state of Texas. All right, so we had 3.7 million, our page touched 3.7 million account, or that's how many times it was reached by those accounts. And that, we had like shares, comments, likes, all that kind of stuff. And so within the last 3 months, during the legislative session, from March until now, you can see the kind of numbers that we're putting up. 3.4 million people, all right? This is the importance, and this is one thing that I want to break down to you. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, because my presentation is almost over. You can see the importance of engaging social media for your individual business concept in the cannabis industry, right? Now, there's a lot of horror stories and scare tactics that are talked a lot about by different influencers and people who are using or that are trying to sell cannabis products or cannabis brands, that they're having a very hard time on places like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, those kinds of things. And I'm here to tell you that it takes a lot of our growth is organic. Now, we did have a time period where we were able to promote, but that is, compared to the 25,000 we have now, is probably 2 or 3%. So a lot of our growth was organic, and so what I'm here to tell you is that if you put in the blood, sweat, and tears, like Dalton said, to develop these relationships, to reach out to people, to identify your brand, to gain trust among the public, your numbers will get huge. You will start reaching thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And who here in the industry wants to have their product in front of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people? Am I correct? Yes, everybody does. I'm no exception to the rule. So, we're powered by business sponsors seeking to advertise, network, and collaborate on our platform. If you're interested in social media a consultation, or you're generally trying to figure out how to grow your brand through the social media network, please come find me and we can talk about that, because it's very important as we continue in the tech revolution, in the tech age, that you're getting your brand in front of as many people, especially because everybody is getting their news. How? Like this, just like this, and it's not going to change. So if you're interested in working with us, contact me. You can find us on our website. You can email us. And if, again, any questions, please reach out to me. Guys, God bless you and keep up the strong fight, all right?
How many times have y'all gone viral? I mean, it's all good metrics, things happen, but what's the virality?
So when we did the committee hearing for HB 1365, those videos in combination reached, in less than 6 hours, reached 40,000 people. So
I got a little goosebumps, because with the people trying to shut it down, you've got to work with people like them or create your own content. So you've got to find content doesn't just share itself. You either have very unique content that people share organically and just because it's awesome, or you work with service providers that can get the message out. And if you're looking to get your brand into it, maybe not now, maybe not 6 months from now, but look at different accounts like the Texas Cannabis Collective, email them, find out what they're going to need to work with regarding sponsorship to get your brand out there. Because I'm sure if you haven't noticed, you can't pay to promote out right now.
No, not right now. It's very difficult. If your name has anything to do with cannabis, weed, marijuana, CBD, THC, whatever cannabinoid you choose, if you're even not associated with that and your material is geared towards educating people on those things, we don't touch the plant, right? So we should have no reason to be banned, but because our cannabis is in our name, Facebook was like, nope.
We seriously just had somebody try to follow our Instagram account and they got shut down saying it was under. I got the screenshot of it. We'll post it because anytime the haters hate on us, we put it out there. You know, our bank account just got canceled. We'll put it out there. We don't care. It is what it is. Don't overdo it either, so you can get shut down. But man, Austin, appreciate you laying it down like this. It's funny. I was getting my news from here, and then I ran into him at a meetup, and I was like, "Wait, you're you? Like that's you?" I was like, "Wait, that's you." Bro, that was 18,000 likes ago, okay? So it is what it is, but man, I appreciate it, and we're looking forward to sticking around for sure. Oh, all right, our last speaker, and then it's open networking hour, hangout time, which is what I'm all about. I really want to give a special shout out and welcome to Kirk Egmanson from the Farmhouse. And man, the Farmhouse, not only do they have a really cool name, they originated from the hill country, man, and they're doing amazing things all over. It's great to bring this education up here. They're local. Whenever we found out we were doing the event in Richardson, they're just like a mile away from here. So we're really happy and honored to have the Farmhouse here. And to wrap up our Hemp History Week event, knock it out, Kurt.
Hey guys, my name is Kirk Edmondson. I'm the owner of the Farmhouse here in Richardson. As Dalton said, we're under the Hill Country Farmhouse family. Originated in Canyon Lake, Texas about a year ago. And this is our first store in Richardson. We opened up about 10 days ago. We had a grand opening this past weekend. And we're here, you know, we have all your CBD needs. We have anything from your oil tinctures to pain cream. We've got flour at the shop as well. We've got tea as well, if you want to try it over there. Come by and see the booth. We're excited to be teamed up with an event like this because we're new to the area. Now, I'm a local guy. I grew up in Richardson. I live across the street in Caney Creek. So being a cannabis advocate, I wanted to bring that to my city. So I'm really passionate about getting the word out and removing the stigma that's associated with cannabis. And that's really big to me. And we're here to have, you know, my shop's big enough. We have a spot in the back. We can have meetings, stuff like that, where we can really start to change the industry. But we also are a retail shop, and we want to sell, you know, products as well. A little bit about our product. We have our own lab down in the original store in Canyon Lake, and my lab guy who makes all the products. Long story short, cured himself of epilepsy with our formula. He's a genius, and we're making some really cool stuff down there. We would put our stuff up against most of the products out right now, and so we really pride ourselves on the quality of our product. So again, we're local. Come by and see us if you're from the area. We're right down the street. You can be there in less than 5 minutes, something like that. We're right here at the booth. Come see us. And I'm really excited about everything we got going on with Green Light Events and Texas Cannabis Collective. So thanks for having me up.
Now at the networking portion of the event, make sure that you network with somebody here. If you're trying to be in the business, you know, exchange business cards. I mean, that's part of the reason why we host these events is we want people talking and building amongst each other to help build up the hemp community here in Texas. So, do you have anything else you want to say, Dalton?
Yeah, there was just a few more. Keeping up with this hemp thing or cannabis thing, it's extremely exhausting. Unless you have an incredible amount of mental resources and an unlimited friend group to tap into, you can really exhaust yourself. There's blogs out there, and I just remembered the Ritter Spencer, Chelsea Spencer, the lawyer that spoke over, they have an amazing blog that they post updates. So if you ever wondered, has that governor signed that thing yet? Has that happened? Go look at their website. It was up there earlier, Ritter Spencer. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram. You know, and this is a self-plug time. We made this last slide. Man, our Instagram and Facebook, they be shutting us down. Please go like our Facebook and Instagram page. Email us if you got anything. We'll post the updates. We're not great at it, but honestly, if you're interested in these type of events, like us, Instagram. If you go to our website, you can register for our newsletter. Our website's still under construction for the last 6.5 months because we keep changing what we're going to do. The joke about Green Light Events keeps changing. It doesn't. Summer's laughing because she knows it's true. And that is what it is. We're going to continue to adapt and shape shift to what the industry needs us here for cannabis and hemp. And we intend to ride this thing out. So follow that Ritter Spencer blog. Like us on Facebook, The Collective. Let's all talk and build a community. The major reason why Green Light Events is doing these things right now is because we could not find these meetups here locally. We could not find these things to talk about. You got to travel to Colorado to have a reasonable conversation about hemp plastic. Okay, so we're bringing this here. If you have any ideas on how to collaborate or how to work within them, there's somebody in here that can help you build a business. You don't have a co-founder, there's somebody in here looking for a co-founder. You don't have a manufacturer, I'm looking at some people, I know they manufacture in here right now. So I really appreciate you guys bearing with us. Thank you for all the people that made this possible. And we're really looking forward to networking and talking with everybody that wants to get it going. Thank you all for coming.
Notice a menthol cooling effect pretty instantly with it. That is honestly all that you need for it. So it lasts a long time too.
Yeah. It spreads out.
Right. So that's the freeze. You can try that on one side and try out this heat on the other. It's very similar, you know, how with people that work out they do ice and they do heating pads. So the heating pad, the warming effect, that's going to really stimulate blood flow and just kind of loosen up everything.
Unfortunate. I had some friends that worked out, so they had to lay some people off, so they weren't able to supply material.
Well, because that's also money based. I mean, as far as if you're wanting to go start selling at Home Depot in a company, you might have to start looking at one product as opposed to.
Man, I don't know. They just
said it's not available.
I know they had to.
And like THC, CBD, any of that, really it makes a difference. And compared to someone who's,
As far as the cannabis industry, so I've got oil tinctures, I've got breath spray, you know, I've got flour for sale that's really good. Pre-rolls, yeah, pre-rolls. Also got honey and seltzer water as well.
Queen City hemp?
Yeah, Queen City. So we're excited to be in Richardson.
Yes, this is lemongrass. We have lavender as well, which is awesome. Lavender is my favorite just because of the nighttime qualities for it. It's a little more relaxing. And this is tend to be a little more energizing when you smell it more than anything. Going on is kind of a mix that I'm enjoying on a daily basis. But of course, you know, chamomile can be better for nighttime. Peppermint or this ginger turmeric if you have stomach ailments, stuff like that. Yeah. But this, we're just going for energy, some wellness today, so that's where this one came from. Help yourself. There's quite a few servings in there, so it's like I said.
Absolutely, we got pet treats, we got cat treats. We did over in the tinctures, we had pet oil as well. Right on. But the dog treats are really good. They benefit the shelter down in New Orleans.
Very awesome.
So yeah, it's we got everything you want. We got some educational books as well. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Thank you for the support.
That's cool too. Yeah. So I mean, being in Texas, this is, you know, it's version of that. Yes. Let me know when you in about 10 minutes how you feel. Definitely am interested.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.